record. Any questions on anything from last week? I hope that was a review from intermediate algebra and maybe some algebra 3 as well. All right, no questions, or I don't see any anyway. So here is today. Today we're going to do the second half of 58, and that lesson is on reflections. And there are two types of reflections that are talked about. The one that we talked about in intermediate algebra, which was a reflection over the x-axis, which happens when you just take the opposite y value. The other one is a reflection over the y-axis when you take the opposite x value. And again, the day one notes cover that pretty well. So to this point, we've had the following translations or transformations. There we go. So just as a review, if we add b outside of the function, that shifts us up. And if we subtract b outside, that shifts us down. Adding b shifts to the left if it's inside. Subtracting b shifts to the right if it's outside. And then the reflections, if you take the opposite of the function, that's the opposite of the y value, that reflects the graph over the x-axis. And if you take f of the opposite of x, that reflects the graph over the y-axis. It's kind of, to me, it's kind of backward, right? You would think that taking the opposite of the x would deal with the x-axis, but it doesn't. So just be careful on those. Excuse me. So you're going to have two types of problems today. One of them will be like this. So you'll be given the parent function, and you need to write the function that results when the two listed transformations are applied in the order given, and then answer the question, if they're applied in reverse order, will we get a different function? And we'll take a look at a couple of ways that you could determine that. So our first example, we're taking the absolute value of x. We are reflecting it over the x-axis and then shifting up 4 units. I'll give you a moment to write that down. All right, so our new function, I'm just going to use g of x as our new function. So g of x starts as the absolute value of x, but then we reflect it over the x-axis, which means we're going to take the opposite of the y value, so the opposite of the absolute value of x. That would be then the absolute value of x reflected over the x-axis. Then we shift up 4 units. That's our new function. If we applied the transformations in the opposite order or in the reverse order. So let me call this one h of x. So here we would take the absolute value of x, shift up 4, and then reflect. And to show that, we would have to take the opposite of that whole thing. Now, if I distribute that negative through, so are the two functions the same? No, I'm sorry. Do I have two different functions? Are g and h different? In this case, yes. A different function results. Oop. Sorry about that. So another one, we have the square root of x. We're going to shift down 3 units and then reflect over the y-axis. So again, if I let g of x be my new function, I'm going to change that a little bit. We go down 3 units, and then to reflect over the y-axis, we take the opposite of x, like so. If I do them in the opposite order, now see, you guys let me mess that up. What are you thinking? What am I thinking? Maybe that's the question. Down 3, right? Should be -3, not +3. If I do them in the opposite order, if I do the if I do the reflection first, and then shift down 3 units, do I get a different function? Or are these two exactly the same? They're the same. So in this case, no. The same function. Results. So that'll be the first half of your assignment anyway will look like that. For the second part of your assignment, it will be, I think, similar to what we did last week. Identify the parent function, identify the transformations being applied in an appropriate order. That order can vary. And then sketch the graph. And that there's only going to be one possible answer when we sketch the graph. All right. So in this case, part A, the parent function. Well, if I get rid of the negative here and get rid of the +3, the parent function is just x. So if I think about the transformations, one way to think about this is first I take the opposite of x, so it is reflected over the y-axis. You could also say it's reflected over the x-axis. It's kind of interesting for this particular problem. Both reflections or either reflection would be correct. And translated up 3 units. So in this case, I mean, it's a line that's in slope-intercept form. So graphing it, hopefully we could graph it just using slope-intercept form of a line rather than thinking about all of the translations and transformations. And it should look like that. So yes, I gave myself the easy one first. All right, here's a little bit more difficult one. And I actually wanted to go through this one because what I would do is rewrite this with the x and the square root first, because I think it shows the transformations a little bit easier. All right, so listing the parent function. Again, that gets rid of everything but the x and the square root in this case. All of the different transformations. And again, this is a case where you could list them in just about any order you wanted to, and your answer would be correct. So here we translate 2 units left, 4 units up, and ooh, I have to think about this. Yeah, in this case, I'll write it here. Over the y-axis. I paused because in this case, the reflection actually happens before we translate up. So the actual order would be left, and then reflect, and then up. So left, 2, reflecting would flip it over, but then up 4. Over 1, 2, 3, down 1, over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, down 1. And so it is going to look kind of like that. All right. So for your assignment in 58B, numbers 2 through 30, just the evens, just because I didn't think you needed to make, 20 graphs. 10 was more than enough. Again, I do have some graph paper available in the office, or actually it's in the foyer. If you want to pick it up, I don't know how much longer it's going to be there. So if you want to send me a message, hey, Mr. Gingrich, I couldn't get there before, but I'm going to go whatever day, let me know, and I will make sure to have some there for you. Just because we're going to do a lot of graphing this unit, this chapter. And I know it's much easier on graph paper to get a precise graph. And if you need it, I can make it available for you. All right. All right. I've rambled enough. Any questions? All right. Again, if you would like, you are more than welcome to stop into class either Thursday or Friday. Next week, no Zoom classes. There will just be an assignment posted on Monday and then winter break. So I will see you after break unless you decide to drop in to either class at the end of the week. Have a great break and rest up, and we'll see you after break.